If mayoral idiocy were warrant for a National Guard deployment, the federal troops would be headed to the Windy City already. I'm Rich Lowry with National Review. Take a look at this.
Are you prepared to defend this land that was built by slaves, a land that was built by indigenous people, a land that is built by workers? Are you prepared to defend this land? The people united will always prevail. I need you all to stand firm, to stand strong.
Brandon Johnson, mayor of Chicago, urging people to fight Donald Trump and perhaps his impending National Guard deployment to the Windy City. If you actually think about what he's saying, it makes zero sense. A land built by slaves. Does he realize he's the mayor of the city of Chicago? When Illinois became a state and got its own constitution in 1818, it barred slavery thereafter in the state of Illinois. And beginning in the 1820s, the Illinois Supreme Court began ruling against the vestiges of slavery in Chicago. Chicago was a stop on the Underground Railroad. It was incorporated officially in 1837 in its modern iteration and didn't experience its explosive growth until the beginning of the 19th century. Slaves were not building Chicago then. Neither were indigenous people. They didn't build the highways. They didn't build the L. They didn't build the skyscrapers. If you want to make more sense about who contributed an outsized amount to Chicago, you wouldn't be talking about indigenous people. You'd be talking about immigrants. But wait, there's more. Brandon Johnson has thoughts on crime.
We cannot incarcerate our way out of violence. We've already tried that. And we've ended up with the largest prison population in the world without solving the problems of crime and violence. The addiction on jails and incarceration in this country, we have moved past that. It is racist, it is immoral, it is unholy, and it is not the way to drive violence down. We cannot return to the same failed strategies that got us here in the first place. Under the previous presidential administration, we requested more federal resources to address gun violence in our city. We continue to make that same call. We have made significant progress on our own, but there is so much more that we can do if we had real support from the federal government.
As the mayor of the city that routinely leads the country in murders, you'd think Mayor Johnson would demonstrate a little bit more humility on this question. Chicago had nearly 600 murders in 2024, eighth highest murder rate of any city in the country, the worst murder rate of any of the big cities. Now, it's true that, like Washington, D.C., the Windy City has recently seen declines, but that doesn't make the intolerable any more acceptable. And contra Johnson, as common sense and research suggests, of course, incarceration works to reduce crime.
Better break your collar, boy.
By definition, incarceration protects the general population from criminal offenders while they are behind bars. The great Charles Layman of the Manhattan Institute cites all sorts of studies showing this, including one in Maryland. After it reduced jail time for young offenders, it found that those offenders, when they were out on the streets, on average committed 2.8 criminal acts and 1.5 serious crimes when they otherwise would have been behind bars. And it's simply not true that we drastically increased incarceration without effect. The rise in imprisonments began after the historic crime wave beginning about a half a century ago was underway and coincided with that wave finally receding. You can argue about how much prisons were responsible for the reduction in crime, but they clearly played a role. There's no exaggerating, by the way, the vast human cost of the country's murder spree that spurred so-called mass incarceration. Homicide victimization rates doubled between 1960 and 1980, according to criminologist Barry Latzer, and didn't begin a consistent decline until the mid-1990s. Latzer points out that from 1970 to 2005, nearly 700,000 Americans were murdered, more than died in our wars from World War II on. As for prisons being racist, clearly rates of incarceration track rates of criminal offending, and it's violent crime that's driving incarceration. Drug offenses, most people in for those are traffickers, not in for mere possession. As for Chicago in particular, it's manifestly absurd to believe the city's problem is that too many criminal offenders are being arrested and put behind bars. It's rather the opposite. Not enough are being caught, and too many are being let go.
One Timex digital watch broken. One unused prophylactic. One soiled.
According to an analysis by the Illinois Public Policy Center, only 1 in 7 violent crimes in Chicago result in an arrest. Arrest rates have been declining for 20 years. You know what could help with this? More cops. As of last September, Chicago had about 1,600 fewer officers than it had in 2018. As a WGN report put it, quote, the number of police officers is at or near record lows. Johnson was pressed on this question on Morning Joe. Take a look.
Do you believe that the streets of Chicago would be safer if there were more uniformed police officers on the streets of Chicago?
I believe the city of Chicago and cities across America would be safer if we actually had, affordable housing.
In that clip, and in so much else he says and does, Johnson was showing his BLM roots. When he was a Cook County commissioner, he sponsored a BLM resolution calling for defunding the police. Now, he tried to minimize it and dance away from it afterwards when he was running for mayor, but clearly that's where his convictions are. As for social programs, obviously very hit and miss, not replicable, and even at their best, they do nothing to reduce violent crime. But Johnson's ignorance on these questions is invincible. As the Bard said, all the world's a stage, and one man in his time plays many parts. If Donald Trump sends the Guard to Chicago, clearly Johnson's role is to be the woke foil, visibly and loudly representing all that's wrong about the left's attitudes towards policing and incarceration.